Hey, welcome to Author Chat. I'm David Wolf from Autovita Studios. David Oakley joins us today. He's been telling brand stories at Boone Oakley Advertising for many, many years, won many prestigious honors, including, this cracks me up, the KO Pectate Award in the 8th grade for having diarrhea of the mouth. This is crazy. In his first book, Why Is Your Name Upside Down? This book is full of stories from his life in advertising. And despite the content of the book, he was recently inducted into the North Carolina Advertising Hall of Fame. David lives with his wife, Claire, and their dog, Walter, in Charlotte. And they've also raised Sydney and Lucas. Even after reading his book, Nobody Eats Parsley, they still love him very much. So, David, welcome to the program. Great to be with you.
Well, David, I'm very happy to be here today. That was quite an introduction. Thank you.
Well, you bet. And it's good to have you. And also to have a fellow, you're firmly grounded in the advertising business. And for those that are watching may not know, so am I. We were just talking offline about, we wrote music for radio, television, and film. You've been working in the advertising industry. And by the way, congratulations on the book. Let's take a look at the cover there so folks recognize it. Available on Amazon and where all great books are sold. Nobody Eats Parsley. So good stuff. I just want to hit on the audiobook side because you've been around production, as I'm sure, and we're an audio production company. What was it about? How did that go for you? How did you like performing the book? These words that you've written, what was it like bringing them to life on the page?
Well, it's so funny you asked that, David, because honestly, writing is like hard, but I write stories all the time. I just like write things that happened in my life.
Yeah.
And I find myself telling stories, like I'll be out to dinner or I'll be like having a beer at like Wooden Robot, a local brewery here right down the street from our agency. Yeah. And I'll end up telling a story. And I wanted to write kind of the way that I would tell a story. And as I got farther along in this book, I decided that I wanted to do an audiobook and just kind of like tell the stories like I would tell them if I was sitting around having a beer with someone and just having a conversation. And that's what I did. We went into here in Charlotte. We went into Ground Crew Sound, which we use for a lot of our radio and TV production here at Boone Oakley.
Absolutely.
And John Cosby and the gang helped us out, and I honestly had always been on the other side of the booth. I'm like directing talent, directing.
I know exactly what you're talking about. The other side of the glass, my friend.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. So to be actually in front of a microphone and actually telling your story is a lot different than being in front of a beer and telling your story.
I love that. The beer doesn't listen quite as well. You know, I like to say it's one person's, it's your voice to one microphone is someone's ear. In other words, there's an intimacy to recording, whether you're doing podcasts or audiobooks. So this is what we're operating in, and there's an intimacy to that environment that I like to tell our authors as they're starting to read and perform. It's also got a different kind of focus than talking to a beer, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah. They remember what you say.
That's unbelievable. I know. Exactly. You know, depending on the head, and there's a lot there that goes into it. With microphones, it's a windscreen, so who knows, right? So, I wonder if this is true of your experience when you reread your own stories. Doesn't I'll ask the open question. Did it ground you in the work itself, like revisiting it as the orator?
Do you know that's a great question, David, because it helped me as a writer to actually go through and read my work out loud.
Yep.
It made me realize that some of the ways that I'd written it wasn't really the way that I would say it. And then in the studio, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to rewrite this paragraph to make it sound more conversational, the way I would really say it. And it was a great experience for me. I mean, it made more work to get the actual printed book done because I changed some stuff as we were going along. And I was kind of dual pathing, both finishing the printed book and also the audio book. So, it was a great learning experience. I will say one other thing. When my first book, Why Is Your Name Upside Down, came out, I had a little book launch party. And at the party, I was supposed to read a passage from one of the books and one of the chapters. And Of course, being the guy who wrote it, I was like, well, I don't really need to practice. I know what I wrote.
I know where you're going, I think.
There, because I started reading it and like going, oh my God, this is terrible. I was a terrible orator. I was just not good at it. And I was really, so when it came down to actually doing an audiobook, I was really nervous about going into the booth and actually recording it. But my friend John Cosby helped me through it. And he was like, relax. You're talking to one person.
Yeah.
And you sort of, as you go a little, you get your groove. And
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we had experiences with authors, David, where they start from the beginning of the book and then we go back and get the intro and maybe chapter 1, just because they know, and we know, that they didn't really hit the groove until chapter 2 or 3. And for continuity and consistency and performance and energy and all those things, we go back and we grab it again. And sometimes it's helpful to do that, but you got to kind of get the nerves out. Particularly if you're not, I mean, you and I have hired voiceover talent all these years, right? And being on the other side of the glass, once I started podcasting back in 2006 or something, I asked one of my colleagues in Dallas, because that's where my company was, how am I doing? And they're like, no, that's not terrible. I really didn't understand how to use my voice, even though I was producing singers and voiceover talent for all these years. It's a very different skill set. You can hear it in your mind's ear, but you can't do, like, doing it with your vocal instrument. It's so different, right?
It's very different. And when you first get in, it's funny you said that about the first paragraph, the first introduction,
right. It's like,
oh my God, I hate the way I sound. I hate my voice. And I'm hearing it in the headphones and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, you get the left cue.
Timid and we did the same thing. Once we finished the book, we went back and re-recorded the first couple of chapters because I had more energy and had kind of found my groove and how I wanted to do it.
Yeah. Once again, we're visiting with David Oakley. He's the author of Nobody Eats Parsley, your latest, and other things I learned from my family. And there it is. I know I love the way the StreamYard platform, we love it for a lot of reasons, but maybe there's a way to do that. I don't know. But in any case, it's great to be with you. So Why Is Your Name Upside Down was really about crazy experiences in the advertising world. I don't know if you want to share any, like, a crazy story here. We could, if you feel like it feels right, or we can move on to other subjects of interest.
Do you mean like a crazy advertising story?
Yeah, like a crazy ad story, because that's what that book was really focused on, right? If I've got it right.
Our agency, Boone Oakley, is kind of known for doing work that gets noticed and talked about and shared, and like some would say outrageous things. Well, one of the stories was how we had to lie a lot to get one campaign produced, and it was all built on a series of lies. But when it all unraveled, it ended up being one of the greatest campaigns we ever did, and it involved a giant muffin about as big as a car, fell off a billboard and crushed a car underneath it. And when it fell off the billboard, this was all planned, but it fell off, crushed a car. Then all the news teams and they were all reporting on this like billboard accident that happened, when in fact we had all done it all on purpose, just so that like we would get more publicity. It would go viral, which it did, and it was for our client, Bloom Supermarkets, and they wanted to really let everyone know that they made jumbo muffins. So we did this thing, and it really caught on. This was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah,
it was one of the stories in the book about how the only way we could get it through, we were lying. The client was lying to her boss because they wanted to PR it before it actually happened, and we couldn't. It was just kind of a twisted set of things that were.
Yeah, that's a strange, like it's like a candid camera moment in a sense. I'm aging myself, but it's like you staged this practical joke almost. You call it lies, and I guess the police didn't know. I mean, this sounds wow.
No, the police didn't know either. We had people that showed up and claimed that they had seen the big muffin fall and crush the car. They were eyewitnesses. And what in reality, we had gone at like 3:30 in the morning and taken the muffin off the board, smashed the top of a car, bolted the muffin to a car. But we had people on TV saying that they had seen it fall, and they were calling people trying to find out whose car it was. It was kind of it's kind of one of the many crazy things.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to tease that out of you. And that's your first book, Why Is Your Name Upside Down? Talk about Nobody Eats Parsley. What's the sort of, if you wanted to give a synopsis for those that haven't read the book yet?
Well, the first book was really about the unusual and wacky things that go on in the world of advertising.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, Nobody Eats Parsley, which actually just came out today. I'm very excited.
Oh, brilliant.
Perfect timing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's really about things that have happened with me family wise. It's about being a dad, being a son, being a husband,
Yep.
And just kind of being me. And the fun thing about like raising kids in North Carolina, growing up here, moving to New York for 8 years, meeting my wife, they're just little things. And it's almost, funny stuff happens to me, man. And I don't know whether I just see it as funny or
you attract strange and funny.
Yeah. I think so. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I just notice it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, this story you told about the muffin falling off a muffin falling off the, I mean, if that's an indication of how you thought creatively to develop campaigns, it's like outside the box doesn't even give it service when you talk about that story. It's so crazy. So you've been doing the advertising thing for a long time. I entered it back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Production side, we both know, it'd be fun to share. How do you think about advertising and marketing as it's evolved through this digital revolution into what we now call this insanity of social media and everything else, which we're participating in at this very moment?
Well, one of the things is like, I mean, just the fact that we're having a conversation and I can see you and we're like doing it from across the country. First, it's amazing. I mean, when I started in advertising, and I'm aging myself as well, as the late 80s, no one had computers. And I remember like the first Apple and going, oh my gosh. And the graphics were just, it was kind of like a glorified word processor or a typewriter that had a screen. And now we're doing this sort of thing, which is amazing. But in terms of, one thing that hasn't changed is that I think that an idea and figuring out something that like gets people's attention will always win over. Even it always beats technology. It's like if you have something that will intrigue people, that will touch an emotion, it really works really well with them. And
that is a constant, isn't it? I mean, it's not about how you execute. I recall a college in Dallas that did there was no budget in this campaign. It was a graphic commercial. There was no verbiage at all. It was just a short, I think it was a 15 with a typewriter doing something. Anyway, it was a very simple idea that won all kinds of awards because it hit people from the heart. And I think that's what you're talking about. It's about the idea and the emotion registration. It's not about production, execution, and all of those things. So from that sense, nothing's changed in terms of how you think, I guess, maybe.
And it's really about connecting on an emotional level. And I find that like a lot of the work that I've done over the years connects on a humor level. Yeah. And I think that's what really comes through in my writing. I mean, the stories are funny to me, and I think that they're funny. They're kind of fun.
Right. Are you guys pretty involved? Yeah. So are you pretty involved in all things digital, or are you still as much involved in traditional media, would you say, as anything else? How does
I think
work with
you have to be involved in all things like new now. I mean, we were definitely involved. It's all advertising. It's kind of blending together. But traditional and new media, and everyone said, are you a digital agency?
Right.
We're an ideas company, and we do it on all different platforms.
Yep.
So yeah,
I love that. I mean, as an audio production company, that's the way we think now. Of course, we're leaning into the trends of people like to listen more than read, which is somewhat sad if you talk about on one hand, but there's a perceived scarcity of time. So there's this audio consumption thing that we're leaning into, David, that's been driving our business. But the radio has certainly changed, and I think television has changed, and just the fact that there's so many more places we can consume media has probably changed the way you're thinking, I'm guessing, but you tell me.
No, everything has changed. And I think it's wonderful to think about like that how big audiobooks have become, because and you have a choice of what you can listen to when you're driving. That to me is so great. And this is almost blasphemous for me to say. It's like, man, I hate advertising when I'm driving. I don't want to listen to any.
I know.
I'm like done,
I'm there, and I used to make my living writing the music for those ads, and now it's so interruptive. So one of the challenges advertisers face, or brands at large, is how, I guess, contextualize or integrate or become parts of people's lives, or create an emotional response that engages. I mean, all these things go into what the work you do, don't they?
Yeah, and that's the one thing that keeps it fresh and new. It's like, how do you do this in new ways and actually connect with consumers?
Yeah,
it's not easy, but it's fun, and it's what I guess that's what kind of keeps us young and laughing.
That's right, David. David Oakley, unbelievable. This is a great conversation. I love that you're the author of this book, of course, Nobody Eats Parsley. It's your latest, available everywhere where books are sold, including the audio version, which is a part of the project for you. So happy you did that. We're big fans of audiobooks around here because we're involved in them. And of course, your previous book, Why Is Your Name Upside Down? All about the advertising, your great stories and experience there over the years. And your agency, again, is Boone Oakley. And really good to be with you. Thanks so much for joining us on Author Chat.
Well, I am honored that you had me on, and this is really fun, David. If I'm ever out west, I'm going to look you up, and I'll be tuning into your podcast from now on. It's such a great.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Be well and enjoy your weekend. Stay safe out there. There's the book again, handheld. None of this digital nonsense. Great stuff. There, and it launched today, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. David, be well. Be good to be with you.
Thank you very much, David. I really enjoyed it.
All right.